This video is to go over the monthly cleaning on the BP8 Sorval centrifuges. We will begin this process by running a pre-warm cycle to get the centrifuge to room temperature. Once it hits room temperature, we can begin to disassemble the centrifuge. The buckets will come out first, then the rotor. As shown here, you will use the rotor key to loosen the rotor to be able to remove it from the centrifuge bowl. If the rotor key isn't turned enough when you're trying to remove it, you will see here it will not come out as easily. There's an easy solution. You'll just grab your rotor key and turn it a little more and then try again. As you see here, now it's able to be removed. The centrifuge bowl is the next part that comes out. We're going to place that off to the side until we're ready to clean that. Here is the machine completely disassembled, and you will see that there is liquid at the bottom. That is from running our pre-warm cycle, so we're just going to make sure we soak that all up and it's completely dry before we wipe the interior of the centrifuge. Wiping the interior of the centrifuge, you will use a paper towel, neutral detergent, and warm water to start, and then go over again with distilled water and a paper towel and let that air dry. For the centrifuge bowl, you can see here that we are cleaning it, and you will use a paper towel, neutral detergent, and warm water, and you'll go completely around the whole outer rim of the bowl and inside rim of the bowl. After you do that, you will grab your distilled water and a paper towel and go over the whole bowl again and let that air dry. Here we are wiping down the rotor, and we are using a neutral detergent along with warm water to get every part of the rotor cleaned. Once we go over it with that, we're going to take our distilled water and rinse it all off. Make sure to go around all of the rotor bolts and let it air dry. Once it's air dried, we're going to take our alcohol and go around the rotor bolts, making sure we're getting all excess grease or debris off of these bolts. We're also checking in this process while cleaning if there's any burrs or corrosion on the rotor. Here's the windshield lid, and again we're using a neutral detergent and warm water to completely clean the front and the back of the windshield lid. Next, we're going to go and clean the buckets. Again, we're using a neutral detergent and warm water to completely clean all 8 buckets. Then we will grab our distilled water and go back over all 8 buckets with the distilled water. Once we rinse with the distilled water, the alcohol will only be used on the outside portion of the buckets where the bucket actually attaches to the rotor rotor bolt. I'm going back to my windshield lid to rinse it off with the distilled water, and I'm going to let it air dry until I'm ready to reassemble the centrifuge. Now that all parts have been cleaned and dried, we're going to reassemble the machine. First is the centrifuge bowl, and as you can see here, there is a rubber dot that we will have to line up with our rotor when replacing the rotor in the machine. In this close-up, you're going to see a white dot that is above the number 1 on your rotor. You want to make sure that that part and that black dot match up so when we go to lock the rotor in place, it will lock properly, as shown here. Now we're going to take a small amount of the grease lubricant and go around the rotor bolts. We're going to make sure that we reapply the lubricant on all parts of the bolts. As seen here, all 8 buckets will also get re-greased, so you want to make sure that you go through all of those buckets and get them nice and greased before we replace it back onto the rotor bolts. Once they are completely greased and lubricated, we will place them back on the rotor bolts and begin to finalize the assembly of the centrifuge. All buckets are now in place. Now we are going to grab our windshield lid and we're going to reapply it back to the door. And this step here is as needed. You want to make sure that your centrifuge is turned off You're going to use the neutral detergent and warm water to clean your touchscreen, the outer parts of the machine, and the lid itself. With the machine being turned off with the door open, you will see when I go to turn the centrifuge back on, I will have to manually close the door. There will be a message on the front of the touchscreen that says manual door to remind you to do so. Thank you for watching.